Over the past weekend, all eyes were on Detroit and the metro area as the city of Detroit hosted the 2024 NFL Draft. But not only were the stars shining from across the U.S. and around the NFL in Detroit, some included some local people with connections to West Bloomfield as well. Take a look.
Stevie is about to do the first ever draft pick from Ireland. Stevie?
With the 114th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Javon Foster, tackle, Missouri.
Javon Foster heading to the Jacksonville Jaguars to protect Trevor Lawrence, their quarterback over there, after a very successful career at the University of Missouri and also a very successful career before that right here in our community at West Bloomfield High School, where he played on both the offensive and the defensive line. Joining us now to talk about Javon Foster being drafted in the 4th round of this year's NFL Draft is one of his former coaches at West Bloomfield High School, now the head coach of the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team, Zach Hilbers. Zach, thank you for being with us.
Yeah, of course. Good morning.
Yeah, glad to have you on to talk about Javon's accomplishment because he becomes now the second West Bloomfield Laker alum to be drafted into the NFL. Let's just start about this moment and the pride that you and your staff, both present and past from Laker Nation, take in having somebody like Javon get this big opportunity and have his name on the big stage in the NFL Draft.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what it comes down to is we're just really happy for him and excited for him and his family. It's like you said, it's such a big, cool event and a big moment in his life. And, to be able to experience it, in Detroit, like home, it just added so much that, he could be down there, most of the weekend at these different events downtown. It's just awesome. I mean, we're just so happy for him. And we're excited for what's coming forward. I think he can go be great.
And it speaks also to the power of the West Bloomfield Lakers football program, especially over the last 10 years or so as the Ron Bellamy era concluded and really reached its peak with the state championship, and even just before that and into both Coach Grice and now your leadership on the team in the head coaching position about where this program is in terms of how elite it is. Well, what does that say, that these accomplishments for Javon Foster, previously for Matthew Judon years ago when he was drafted in the 5th round in 2016 by the Ravens? How do you use that as sort of an example for your players now that as they're in practice, as they're competing at the high school level about what this does to build that foundation for potentially a long-standing football career?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what it comes down to is, like you've mentioned, we've been blessed to have really good players for a few years now. And with that, it gives them these great opportunities in life. And a lot of times that's just taking the next step, going to college, getting their degree partially paid for, and, to kind of build a future from there. If they're lucky enough, like you mentioned with Matthew and now Javon, they're able to take that next step further. And, we're just really grateful to be part of the platform that helps these kids, really realize their dreams, keep moving forward. We really hope that a year from now, we're having a similar conversation about a few more guys that are still in school themselves.
And let's take that back to just a few years ago, 2018, Javon Foster graduates. He's in the program for years before that. But going to the beginning of his football career, I saw an interesting post from Coach Grice, actually, about Javon was initially a little bit reluctant to get into the game of football. He was a basketball player. There had to be a little bit of convincing in there. And so from the coaching staff's perspective, what did you guys see in Javon to try to really go all in and convince this young man that you could be great in the game of football?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he was really reluctant to play football. He just hadn't really done it. He grew up a basketball player.
Sure.
He was just so big and so athletic. He just kept getting bigger and bigger. And it was really, I think crucial to his development, like the footwork and coordination that he developed being a really, really good basketball player. Easily translated and made him a pretty effective football player once he got the hang of it. So his junior year was his first year in high school. Sorry, his junior year of high school was his first year playing. And there's some growing pains. You knew he could be really good. It just, wasn't all there yet. And then you saw him take this huge step his senior year and kind of figure it out, realize how big and strong and athletic he was. And that gave him the opportunity to go to Missouri, which was really right down to the wire. Most of his senior year, he was planning on going to Central Michigan, and he would have done great there as well. But the Missouri opportunity came and he took it, and you just kept seeing him get better and better and better. And yeah, it was so cool to see.
We're joined by Zach Hilbers on the Splash Live today, head coach of the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team. And Zach, now currently wearing the number 9 for the New England Patriots, is another former draftee who is a West Bloomfield Laker alum, and Matthew Judon. He was drafted by the Ravens back in 2016. He's got his number retired, the 99 hanging above West Bloomfield High School. And is that sort of that litmus test? Should we expect to see Javon Foster's jersey number up there in a couple of years?
Hey, well, I hope so, because that means he's had a pretty successful career. So Matthew was, a 3-time Pro Bowler. Was probably on his way to his 4th straight this year before he got hurt and injured his bicep tendon and stuff. So, if we get another one up there, it'll be a great, great thing, and that'll mean he's had a successful career. So I really do hope so. Hopefully we get a few more of them.
Yeah, we were talking a lot about Javon Foster being drafted in the 4th round of this year's NFL draft, 144th overall pick, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars to play offensive line for them after a successful career at Missouri. But he's not the only Laker going into the NFL after this draft cycle. Tre Mosley, one of the all-time great receivers in West Bloomfield Laker history, who just graduated after a successful career at Michigan State, also signing as this time as an undrafted free agent with the Cincinnati Bengals and getting an opportunity there. Talk about Tre also and what makes him such a standout player, because I mentioned this a little bit on Monday's edition of the show right after the draft, that he's a little bit more of that stoic leader that isn't necessarily a rah-rah guy out and about in when the spotlight's on him, but is definitely a motivator and a really excellent hardworking player.
Yeah, they're both really good kids, Tre and Javon. They're just so different, which is kind of cool to see. You see a lot of it when you're a teacher and coach, where Javon was kind of always like a goofball, just hilarious kid. And Tre he's a great kid, so polite, so well-liked here by all of his teachers and staff. He could have been a captain as a sophomore. Like, realistically, the type of focus and drive and work ethic he had. Now, he wasn't, because we happen to have really good upperclassmen leaders as well. But when the guys at Michigan State told me a couple of years ago that Tre's probably going to be one of our captains, I'm like, yeah, no kidding. He does just everything right. He does all those little things right. He's been greatly missed here at the school, but we're really happy for him as well too. Because if anybody deserves an opportunity and a shot out there, it's him.
You can learn more about Tre Mosley's signing with the Cincinnati Bengals and Javon Foster being drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars on westbloomfieldathletics.com, and see even more about them on the West Bloomfield School District's Facebook page at West Bloomfield Schools. And Coach Hilbers, you mentioned that this is probably not the end of us talking about players from West Bloomfield going into the NFL in the coming years. We think about a year from now, we could see potentially 2 getting drafted very early on. Donovan Edwards going back to the University of Michigan for his senior season, and he is expected to be running back number 1, taking over for Blake Corum in Ann Arbor. Makari Page also going to be back on the defensive side. So 2 guys wearing the maize and blue number 7, used to wear the green and white West Bloomfield jerseys, possibly also going into the NFL next year. Now, speak to that and how that really cycles back to the success that the program has had. And not only have guys have great careers in high school, but go on and do great things at the collegiate level. And then beyond that, whether or not they go into the NFL or continue on with football at all, still have really successful lives leading as members of their community.
Yeah, and I think you kind of nailed it right there. Those 2 will have a great shot and great opportunity, and it's all in front of them. And Makari's a lot like Tre, just did so many little things just right. Just not a rah-rah kid, but just real quiet, unassuming, and just worked his tail off. And Donovan, for all the publicity and the highlights that he's garnered, and obviously he's deserved, but both in high school and the big college games that he's kind of popped off. Donovan's probably the hardest working kid that I've had here in 18 years, and we've had a lot of really good players, a lot of really hard workers, a lot of great leaders. Nobody worked harder than Don. So he's one of the more talented kids we've had, obviously, too. But it's that second thing, I think, that really sets him apart from so many people. It's just he's got a different kind of drive than most have.
And that's going to pay dividends for him in Ann Arbor with a bit of a transition this season. Sharon Moore taking over as the head coach after succeeding his predecessor, Jim Harbaugh, now head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers in the NFL, a team that may be looking at some of these guys in the very near future. Coach Hilbers, thank you for your time today.
Oh, great. Always glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Congratulations to you, to your staff, both past and present from the West Bloomfield Laker football program. And, of course, to Javon Foster, Tre Mosley, and their families on successful high school, collegiate, and now hopefully very successful NFL careers as well. Learn more about their successes and follow their journeys on westbloomfieldathletics.com.